My father, when I was fortunate enough to have a father who was very successful in the industry, and he told me, don't go into the entertainment business to make money. Go into it because you love it, and then you will most likely make money, possibly make money. And most of people who are in this industry are doing it because in their heart, they can do nothing else. They're compelled. They're drawn to it. It's a calling. And I think that that's what all of us, when things become difficult, it hurts us on a deep level because it's who we are. It's what we really love doing.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets Podcast. I'm Pedro, and today's guest is Michael Franks, a career coach for the film and television industry and a creative professional who helps talented individuals stop spinning their wheels and move toward the life and work they actually want. With a 35-year career as a director and cinematographer, he understands what it takes to turn craft into opportunity and talent into momentum. Michael works with clients to clarify their vision, strengthen confidence, build meaningful networks, and take consistent action with a clear plan. His approach blends mindset, marketing, and practical career strategy to help professionals land work faster and create both financial and creative success. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you. That was a great lead-in. Thank you for that intro.
It was great to have you. I mean, I think you deserve it, right? I mean, it's your intro, not mine. All right. And you know what, Michael? I like to backtrack a little, rewind a bit, because every coach has that moment where they look at their life and say, yeah, I guess this is what I'm doing now, right? So when was that for you?
Well, it's funny because it's an ongoing process. I guess in 2022, at the end of 2022, things in the industry started to shift a bit. And I had finished a series that I had done that year. And then I also did a feature. And then, with the freelance industry, with freelancers, you tend to go up and down. Sometimes you're working long period of time, and then there's a gap. But the gap was starting to be longer than I had expected. And then also what was on the horizon was the potential strikes that were going to happen in our industry. And so I decided to reach out to a friend of mine who she referred me to somebody who helped creatives create a business. And I didn't know what I could do, but I did know that coaching was something that I guess I felt was possible, but I didn't know even how to create a business or how I could monetize that. But that was really the beginning of my journey into this career coaching. And I don't know if you want me to continue, but it was really landing my first client that really made me think, oh, I guess this is something I could do. And now fast forward, I've leaned more into it because I love doing my creative work. And I love doing this. I love helping people move their careers forward, seeing them where they start with me and then the successes they have. It's really, it gives me great, I guess, satisfaction and also feeling like purpose. There's a different purpose than doing what I do as a director or cinematographer.
I think the industry is so interesting. And the first time I met you, when we were prior podcast, I was thinking about something I watched on TV a while ago. And when you mentioned career coaching in the film industry, right? That's what you do now. So basically, it's how the film industry does something different whenever and you can correct me here if I'm wrong. I just watched that. I'm not sure if in Netflix or something else, but whenever they're hiring someone, and this reminds me of like Dirty Dancing, that movie when Patrick Swayze and all that, and they were like asking about skills, right? Can you ride a horse? And people, they added that to the resume. And this is wild if you think about corporate, right? It's just that box. Like, you need to do X, Y, and Z. This is the job description and just that. But the film industry, sometimes it feels like it's more open-ended, so we can eventually use your toolbox of skills that you have. Is that like a ballpark, or am I too far off here?
No, that is accurate. The difference primarily, people and it's not only just the entertainment industry, but it is anyone who is freelance. People who are basically live gig to gig, and they love doing what they're doing in a creative way, whether they're massage therapists or whether there are actors and directors in the entertainment industry. Their basically work depends on being hired to do what they do. As a cinematographer, it's a very small crosshair, in terms of me being the right person for the right job at the right time, and for them to want to hire me. There's a number of factors that go into that, which is very different than coaching. But what I do is help people first of all, understand that, and then also find the way to be independent and interdependent in what is basically a codependent business where you can't do your craft unless you're actually hired to do it, right? That's the difficulty. The other thing about the entertainment industry is that there are many ways to land work and to find work. And it doesn't just come from your degree. Like in the business world, you have to have a degree. Where did you go to school? How much experience do you have? In the entertainment industry, it's a lot about building relationships. And most people succeed because of the relationships that they've been able to create in order to land the work that they want. I'm sort of giving, a little bit.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's really important to, that old adage that it's who you know. And it's very true, because in the entertainment industry, there's a lot of money on the line. And, when you're doing a production, it's incredibly expensive each day when you're in production. And so they choose carefully in terms of who they can trust. It's the know, like, and trust factor. But then also the other factor that goes into it is they have to care about you, in order for you to be hired. So I don't know if I've answered your question or if I sort of, colored outside the lines there a little bit.
No, you did. And thank you for sharing that. What I want to understand now is, when did it shift from I'm helping people in the industry to I'm building a real business around this?
That was in 2022 when I decided to be serious about this, because for years before that, I loved, like I had mentioned to you, is I really loved having coffee with people who were trying to get a leg up, younger people or whatever, younger than me at the time, whatever it was, even when I was 30. I liked being able to talk to people and help them find the way to land work. But I never got to see it through. I never got to see whether my advice or my strategies helped them at all. And so that's one of the things that I am really enjoying, having a program that people can actually stay in for a period of time, and I can help them at each step of the way. As they get success at each level, they're going to need different things than they did previously at the lower level, right? Sometimes they just want to get their foot in the door. Then they start doing that, and then they want to know what's next. How do I move myself to the next level?
Okay. It's interesting because it's career coaching, but at the same time, there's a lot of freelancing involved. That's not as usual as we see career coaches. Most of them preaching is like, I'm going to help you get into Google. I'm going to help you to get into, whatever, Fortune 500. But your industry, the entertainment industry, it's like a lot of, you need to know the right people. And at the same time, you need to put up with freelancing, right? Because some people, they like, oh, this is not really a steady job or not. So there is this uncertainty, right? So how do you navigate through that if you see a lot of scarcity mindset from your clients, for example?
Well, that's part of it. As a matter of fact, in putting together this webinar that I'm doing this Saturday, there are essentially four pillars or building blocks to have a successful career in the entertainment industry, and they involve relationship building, which networking is part of it, marketing, business tools. A lot of creatives never learn business tools, how to design your career, how to have a business plan, how to write emails that get responses, so on and so forth. How to interview well, how to really successfully interview, master interviewing. That's one of the key things that I work with people on. And the other main pillar is what you mentioned is mindset, because how you think affects what you do. How you think, how you feel, the story you tell yourself, the beliefs you have. And those, sometimes the internal obstacles are the harder ones to overcome. I really think it's 20% of the doing and the action, but knowing what actions to take, what are the right steps, and overcoming your own internal dialogue about, Hollywood is dead, or maybe I should just, hang on a little bit longer. Feeling like an imposter. I mean, I think every human being deals with a lot of the same things, but I work with people in terms of dealing with that. And then once we overcome that, then it's about what actions are you going to take that are really going to be effective. Most people cold call or cold email or apply on LinkedIn or apply online for jobs. And I really feel that is a waste of energy, that there is a much faster, a better way to get there.
Yeah, and to your point, right, when you mentioned one of the pillars being relationship building, it just remind me of, I guess I watched like 2 weeks ago, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. I think they were at Joe Rogan's podcast, and they were like saying the schedule is so tight that usually directors, they have their own posse, right? They have their own team so close because there's no space for mistakes. So
Right.
to your point, I think that makes sense, right? Because there's so much at stake.
That's right. There is so much at stake. And so people aren't going to, in terms of getting hired, you have to have the relationship with the person who can hire you so that they know that they can trust you. They have to first know you, then they have to be able to trust that you can do the job, and then they give you the opportunity. But yeah, it's because of that. And so most time people are going to go down their list of people that they know. And when they're not available, then they go to referrals, who their A-list people refer the next person who, if they're not available. So they're going to refer somebody. So you need to be able to get on that list. You need to have a large number of people that you know in the industry. And then you also have to have a list of people who you are their number one or number two call when there's a show, when there's a project. And you have to then, so it's playing the long game. It's really building those relationships. It's not, and a lot of times people just do the same three things to look for work, whether it works or not. And I know I was in the same boat, and that's kind of why I do this, is because I've been there. I know exactly the struggle of doing that. 20 years ago, I don't know if you want me to kind of tell this a little bit, but
Go
20
ahead.
years ago, I had been, I grew up in New York City. I wound up getting a job at NBC. My dream was to do Saturday Night Live. Through a series of, sort of the short version is I really was persistent, and I landed Saturday Night Live, which was my dream gig. I worked on that for a number of years, and then I decided I really wanted to go freelance. I wanted to do more narrative projects. And so I left the network and I started my freelance career. I eventually moved out to Los Angeles. And after about 15 years of being out in LA, I thought that my credits from New York were going to translate and I was going to be able to do more features and stuff like that. But I learned that I was getting work and I was doing fine, but I wasn't doing the work I wanted. I was on a parallel track to the career I really wanted. And so I was fortunate enough to find a career coach that was being offered at my union. And what she taught me really was profound. It changed my career and my life. And ever since then, I have a different way I learned a lot of things, and I also got out of my comfort zone. I had to do things differently. I had to practice some different things. But within 3 months of working with her, I landed 2 series television shows, and I directed 2 seasons of a show for Showtime. And this was all because of the skills and the things I learned. And so my building of my own coaching is to give that back to people, is to have people think outside the box of what they normally do in order to land the work that they truly want. And that's why I do this. And that really did change my career and enabled me to do what I love doing. You know what I mean? Is that when you're struggling and you feel like if people only knew about me, I would work more. But how do you do it? How do you get there? How do you connect the dots? And that's what I help people do, is really understand there are actually practical, powerful, proactive tools that you can use to get there. And I'm sorry if I've kind of, I know we're talking about coaching, but I don't mean to kind of toot my own horn a lot here, but it is something I'm passionate about. I guess that's why I do this. It's beyond making a difference in the industry. I love doing my lighting and doing camera work and directing projects. This is a different level of that. This is helping other people succeed, which is really rare. To be able to do that.
Yeah, no. Well, first of all, it's your spotlight, right, Michael? You talk about whatever you want to feel like talking, so no stress about it. Second thing, I do have a question, and this is really out of curiosity because you're such in a unique environment. I think everyone's curious about.
Yeah.
But I think this question applies to other types of recent grads that are tied to the artist in some way industry, which is if you had like, imagine I'm a recent grad, right? I just graduated from cinematography or whatever, film industry, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm asking you, should I do indie type of work on my own, right? Because today is a little bit different from 30 years ago. There's internet and all of that. Or should I apply to a job so I can start learning from there? Or should I do both? What would you suggest in that situation?
Well, there's no sort of cookie cutter answer to that. It's all dependent on the individual and what they do and what they want to do. And that's where it starts, is what's your dream? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? And based on that vision, which a lot of people don't do, most people don't start there. They start where you're saying, I just want to get a job. I just want to get my foot in the door, which is a great place to start. I mean, yes. And there are many ways to get your foot in the door, and many ways to start. One of them is to do your own work and to start to post, and to show what you can do and create a reel, which is important. The other thing is to sustain yourself. So while you're doing that, it's important to have a job. You need to be able to pay the rent and have some independence. And so, there's many different ways to do that. That's why I don't know if there's just one answer. But I would recommend that I work with both ends of the spectrum. I work with young folks who are just starting and figuring out how they can get their foot in the door and where do they begin? How do they even start, like you're asking? And also mid-career or late career people. Mid-career people are at a point where they've reached a plateau. They've had some success and they want to then figure out how do they get more success, or how do they play the bigger game. And so all of that is what there are ways to do that. I'm trying to think what else I was going to say to address that. Did that help? Did that answer that question?
Absolutely. I love that answer. Absolutely. It makes you reflect on the true goals you're looking for, which, as a person that just graduated, it's something to reflect on. I think it's so powerful because sometimes we see people like they're 20 years down the road and they're like, what am I doing? And because they never stopped. They never sit and reflect about the next move. They're just following someone else's playbook, So I really like
or their career goes based on where their jobs go. What's the job I got? And then what's the next job that was offered me? And all of a sudden that's why that's happened to me. I was doing great. I was doing the X Games and I was doing the NFL draft. I was in charge of lighting big events and so on. I loved doing that. And it was one of my talents. However, I really wanted to do more narrative projects, smaller projects. And so it was taking the wheel and steering it in the direction. Yeah, absolutely. What you're saying is that, so a lot of people they give up on their dream because it hasn't happened, or they don't know how to make it happen. And what I work with people on is to revitalize that dream, is to really, because only you know what your dream is. Only you can see it, right? And if you can see it, you can do it. You can have it. And I know that's sort of a trite, almost, people say that all the time, but it is true. I mean, I'm living proof of that. Like Saturday Night Live was something that I dreamed of, and everyone told me, "Oh, you're too young. You'll never get that." I was in my 20s when I landed that show. And so I'm just here to tell you that it starts with the dream. It starts with the vision, and then you have to believe it, and then you commit to it, and then you figure out what are the action steps, what are the steps to get there. And it's hard a lot of times in the entertainment industry, and I think in most freelance industries, people go it alone. They don't ever think of working with someone who can help them see what they don't see. Sports and athletes people do it all the time, right? Great
Mhm.
athletes, even Kobe Bryant or people who are at the top of their game, they hire a coach because they want to get better. They're good, but they want to get great. And so, but in the entertainment industry, a lot of times, unless you're an actor, people aren't familiar with hiring a coach to help them see what they don't see, help them steer their career and be independent and really take some deliberate steps toward having their dream work out. And so that's in broad strokes what I help people do.
Okay. I mean, that's the coaching side. Now, let's talk about the part nobody escapes, Michael, marketing, right? So,
Uh-huh.
how do people usually find you?
They either find me right now because I think I'm in early stages, even though I've been doing this for a few years. People either find me through word of mouth or I do. And so this is interesting because a lot of what we're talking about is very specific to my coaching practice. But in terms of coaching and what I've learned how to coach and how to create a business, which 3 years ago, I had no clue how to do this. But part of it is right now, I create some sort of way for people to get to know me. And so either I do a webinar or I do something in front of people, like a talk or something, so that people can start to learn a little bit of what it is that I do and how I can help them. And so that's where I start. And I think in terms of for coaches, this podcast is to help other coaches. And one of the things that, when you sent me questions is what can people do or what should people not do? And a lot of people, even me, I thought, oh, I'll just build a website. And that's really one of the last things to get to. The priority is to get in front of people and start the conversations. I landed my first conversation with someone just by having coffee with them. And so in order to stabilize your coaching business, start having conversations with people before you do all the tech, before you start to get some clients going. And then you can start to build all that other stuff because you start to have some money, you start to monetize it. So I'm just giving you, that was general advice as far as
Mm,
building a coaching business.
mm.
It's also easy to get overwhelmed about all the stuff you have to do. I mean, there's AI, there's all this stuff. And I didn't have a list. I didn't have a list to email people. So I little by little built a list from doing some free talks for based on what I do. Right now I'm doing a networking, and then there's other aspects of things that I do. I can do a talk on. Anyway, so did that answer your question? It's really prioritizing what's going to lead to monetize, what's going to lead to income, and take those actions and prioritize those actions first. And then once you have income, then you can start to do all the other stuff that you need in terms of a website and creating, online.
No, yeah, that makes perfect sense. You answered my question. Now, let's talk business for a second, Michael. So people find you, right, through a
Hmm.
webinar, through networking, or they received an email, like you mentioned, and they resonate with your work, right? And eventually they want to know what working with Michael actually looks like because
Hmm.
everyone builds their coaching a bit different, right?
Hmm.
Coaching business. So when someone actually becomes a client, Michael, what does that experience look like right now?
It starts with what I had mentioned before. We starts with them figuring out where they want to go. What are the results, the actual results that they want to have in 5 years? And we reverse engineer it to a year. And so working with me, we start with a deep dive into them and where do they want to go? And then we create a plan for getting there. I give them some homework before our first coaching call, and they do a deep dive into sort of a understanding and an evaluation of how they've been working, how they've been looking for work, who are the people that they know, who are the people that they want to know or need to know. And then when we have our first call, we've come up with a game plan, some action steps to get there. And that's the beginning part of it. And then they have a number of self-directed call. They can schedule calls with me. I give them a number of calls over the course of a year or 6 months or whatever the period that we're going to work together. And each call is to help them move the ball down the field, so to speak, is to then, okay, you're here. What's been working? What's not working? And how can I give you some tools or strategies to break through? And it's really about transformation. I want to say that up front, that in terms of anything, information is available on the internet. You can watch a YouTube video on how to get work. You can do all sorts of education learning, but that doesn't really help you transform. It doesn't help you because most people, you still have the obstacles, the fear and the imposter syndrome in terms of doing things, in terms of meeting people, in terms of asking for help. I mean, there are so many things that stand in your way from achieving the goal. And so that's what I work with people on, is implementing the knowledge, implementing the strategy. Because strategy is just strategy. You're not going to do the strategy unless you have the right mindset, unless you have the resolution and the clarity of what is it you want and are you willing to do what it takes to get there. And so that's what I work with people on, is building their confidence. And so it's all of these things together that I've kind of gone through. That it's knowledge, it's teaching, it's mentoring, and it's coaching, which are all distinct things. A lot of times people refer to coaching and it's really not coaching, it's teaching, or it's giving advice. And that's not coaching. Coaching is what's the word I'm looking for, is to evoke transformation from the person by a series of questions and helping them discover what they already know, or what maybe they don't know, and helping them find it and then implement the strategies, basically. But you're not going to do the strategies unless you really have the right mindset. And so that's sort of a philosophy that I work with.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of an awakening, it sounds like, right? It's like the true self, the true intention, what's behind looking for X, Y, and Z job, what's behind of
Exactly.
why are you trying to go down that path? So I really like that, because then it brings back to intention, because and sometimes we see ourselves like battling internally, like should I really chase this or not? But if you have that intention pretty tuned in, you're not going to have a problem with that, because you're already been there doing that thinking work. That's the reason I need to do it. And I understand that. So yeah, totally.
I
Also,
want to say one thing in addressing that. I was talking to someone the other night at a party, and we were talking about what I'm doing. And so we were saying that sometimes people can't even articulate what they want. They say that saying that knowing what you want is sometimes just under a lot of layers. And I'm speaking from my own experience, that I started this year doing a practice that really was in the beginning was just a journal that I learned from someone else. Just a journal of I want, and just start with whatever the simplest thought is. I want a cup of coffee. I want, whatever. And then it gets deeper as you start to write it. But I noticed how the struggle of even articulating what I want in terms of big things was so hard to get to at first. And I find that with people I'm working with, sometimes I have to ask them several times, well, what do you want? And they're like, well, I just want a job. Okay, great. And if you have that, what do you want? And to really get to the core,
the
because
layer.
that's what drives you. That's what really is what you wake up in the morning and get excited about. And that's what's going to help you overcome the obstacles, is really being clear about what you want.
That is so true. You know what that reminds me? It reminds me of the ending of Breaking Bad, to be a candid. It's like when he's bullshitting the entire series that he's doing for his family, the cancer, and at the end he's like, sorry to spoiler alert, guys. He's like, I did it for me, that's what I really wanted to do, because I see a lot of people. I'll give you an example. That I met a guy that he was pretty successful, and he was telling me he had this conversation with his coach, and the coach asked him, okay, what's the most important things in your life, top three. He enlisted by order. He's like God, family, and work. And and then the coach asked, so why do we spend 80% of the time in work. This is the type of doesn't match reality. Sometimes people tell themselves stories, but they're not true. They're
Hmm.
so and it's because they weren't able to find that true intention yet. They're just like playing to someone else's, guidebook or manual that they think it's right. Like, oh, I'm gonna grab a new car, I'm gonna grab a new house. Okay, well, why, man?
Yeah, because they think that happiness comes from those things. This
Mm,
is a key thing, and it's in our culture. Have the right car, you will be happy. Have enough money, you will be happy. And really, it's the other way around. You have to be happy first, and to find the joy, and then do what you do, and then you'll have what you want. Do you know what I'm saying? And that
mm,
is a counterintuitive. The other side of it is, when people fail, they don't have someone in their court. Maybe they don't have a history of having someone who can help them overcome whatever failure happened, and to move on, and to get back on the horse, and to they make up a belief. I guess I'll never get that. I guess I'm not meant to be successful, or whatever it is. And I was fortunate. I grew up in the entertainment industry. I had a father who was in the top 1% of his career in terms of, he started in television in the pioneering days of television. But even so, it didn't help me succeed entirely. A lot of what I learned from him, I utilized. But when I started doing it, the business was different. It was a very, overcrowded, a lot of people in it. So I had to then make my own way, and I had to learn a different way of looking for work. And so that was really what motivated me to actually find a coach. And that is what I'm, giving to other folks, is what is most people in this industry are lazy. They don't want to do the work. And it's funny because sometimes the least talented people succeed because of their determination, because of their persistence. And that's part of it. But it's also the belief in yourself, and all the stuff that you make up about, all of that stuff about work and what's going to make you happy.
mm. Michael, now I'm curious about where you're taking all this, right? Looking ahead, where do you see the business going? Are you thinking about scaling, hiring, or is there a next step you're excited about?
Well, eventually I will. Right now, it's me, and I really love the one-on-one and the high touch business of giving people what I can give them. Yes, I'm looking to get in front of more people and really be the go-to person that people go to help them transform their careers and move themselves forward. I don't think enough people know what I do, really, because I've really in early stages, but that is a goal of mine, is to really get in front of have more clients. And eventually, yes, I will probably need people to help me in terms of different areas of my business. Right now, I'm one man banding it, which I think is where we all start as coaches. And I've learned through my coach, I hired a coach to get me this far, is to learn what I need to prioritize. What are the next steps? What is the mindset? All of that stuff is stuff that I've been coached in terms of building a coaching business and learning how to do that. And it's really interesting because I think I've grown myself in the 3 years I've been doing this. I had to learn and overcome a lot of my own internal obstacles. And that's only made me a better coach. And I further got certified. I further learned more about how to coach and how to be a better coach. And like I said, a lot of times people call something coaching, which isn't a coaching. It's really being a partner with somebody to realize their potential, their creative financial potential, but it's really partnering with them to see what they don't see, and to encourage them, to help them grow, and so on. And it's about change. And, as human beings, we have this million-year-old brain, right? That we
Mm,
used to live in caves. And so we still make those fears as if we're going to get eaten by a monster outside the cave. And so we'd rather stay safe and rather stay in the box that we're in, even if it's uncomfortable, than sometimes taking a little bit of a step outside of it to get a little bit of a success and to move forward. And that is really what I think you need a coach for, is because we don't, like I said, we don't have people who encourage us when we fail. We don't always have a community of people to hold us accountable to our dreams and what we want to do. And fortunately, I've been able to surround myself with other like-minded people who help me do that. and I have a wife who's fantastic. I think that, I don't know about you, but I know that my wife is one of my best support systems, and I talk things through with her, and she sees things that I don't see. But in addition to that, it's having a coach who knows the business that you're in to help you succeed and to see what you don't see. It's funny because it's not only what you don't know, it's what you don't know you don't know. That
Uh-huh.
is some of the biggest breakthroughs. Is like, oh my God. When I started, it was like my coach just started small with this thing that was just out of view. She just said to me, when I said I want to do more narrative projects, she said, okay, great. How many people that can hire you and to do that job? How many people do you know that can hire you? And all of a sudden I was like, oh yeah, oh man, I only know 3 or 4 people. So she goes, great. That's a great awareness. Now you need to know what your work is to find more people that can hire you in that business and to expand your network, because you need to do that. You need to know at least 200 people. And then out of that 200 people, you need to have 10 people, at least 10 people who you are on the top of their list when the job comes up. You're their first call or their second call. So that's when she told me that, I was like, oh my God, overwhelm, right? Overwhelm. My mind goes into overwhelm. What am I going to do? How am I going to do that? Oh my God, all the voices in your head. But she helped me put one foot in front of the other. And little by little, I got there. And like I said, it took 3 months and I landed the shows that I wanted it to land. So what I want to tell you, Pedro, is that it's funny how that whole thing happens, is that, you just start to have the realization, and then it's about, a lot of the choice is either I'm overwhelmed, I'm not going to do anything, or, okay, great, give me the first step. What do I do? And then once you do it, oh, I know what I was going to say. If you would have told me, back then that I would be actually coaching people and doing this free webinar in front of 30 people, I was terrified. I didn't know how to network. I didn't even know how to talk about it like I'm talking to you. This has come from just years of practice and doing what was difficult and getting outside my comfort zone. And I still do it. It's funny. I did this post about 3 years ago on Instagram. I said, do something that scares you every day. This is it for me. And it was just posting once on Instagram, getting in front of people and letting them know, so anyway, I've rambled on. I don't know if any of this was
Yeah.
related to what you're talking about, but I kind of jumped around a bit.
No, it definitely is. And especially the spouse section, I feel like sometimes it's, to an extent, it's like coaching, right? Talking to the spouse. It's like whenever I'm talking to my wife, for example, sometimes I'm like in the middle of the noise, right? I'm thinking about 1 million ways this could go wrong or right. But I'm in the middle of the noise. So I'm emotionally attached to the situation. And when a coach or even the spouse make that question, that right question that disarms you, and you're like,
Exactly.
and it's so simple because and the reason it's simple for them, it's the exact reason, it's why it's easy for you to do others. It's because you're not emotionally involved, you're not emotionally attached to the situation, so it's so much clearer when you're not
Exactly.
into it. So
But
yeah,
then
that makes
sometimes your
perfect sense.
mind goes, "Oh no, you don't understand how it works." Oh no, all of
Mm,
that stuff. When your wife or your friend has the simplest. Well, why don't you just call them up? Why don't you just call
yeah.
up Steven Spielberg? Why don't you, if you want to work with Steven Spielberg, just call him up? And your mind goes into all these things of why you can't do that.
Mm,
But I'm here to tell you that you can connect with anyone in the industry, anyone from the A-list people all the way down. 6 degrees. They say 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. I don't know if you've heard that expression. It's 6 degrees of separation. But if there was a game where you think of all the
hilarious.
movies that Kevin Bacon has been in, that you can connect Kevin Bacon to almost any other actor or any other director, because he's only 1 degree or 2 degree. He worked with them on this movie, but then that person worked with Steven Spielberg on whatever. So that's where that expression came from. 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. But
Okay, I
it's
love
true.
it.
You can connect to people, but it's not just about making cold calls. It's about connecting the dots, knowing people that you do know, connecting you to the people that you don't know.
Okay. And of course, whenever we're aiming towards the next chapter, there's always something we're refining in the present, right? So, what are you currently trying to improve or tighten up in your business right now?
That's a good question. Well, growing, it's really getting clearer about who I serve and getting clearer about how I serve them. I think I've done that since January. That was where I started this year off, is to start to really drill down and to deepen, really get to the heart and pardon my expression, but the no bullshit. What is it that people really need? What do people really want right now, given everything in the world, AI and and then given what they need, what can I do? How can I provide that? What's the biggest need, and what is it that I can give to them, and or solve their solution? What's and I think that's the main thing. And so I think human connection is one of the things that, in broad strokes, is that people need right now, that we need to turn down the noise of all the opposition and all the people, whether it's political or whatever it is to see people, see humanity, and to see each other for what we are. We're all trying to just, get a leg up. We're all trying to survive. We're trying to make our life better. No matter whether you have different political views or not, that's a basic human need, is to want to grow and to want to change, and evolve. Not to get too woo woo about the whole thing, but that's part of it. It's just really helping people to. In answer to your question, let's see, the short version of that is really to get down to the brass tacks, or the no bullshit of what do I do really for people, and what do people need, and really tailoring what I do to that.
Okay. I mean, there's so much noise out there, right? It's so many coaches, so many people offering services. So it's about getting that really specific targeting and positioning, so you can cut through the noise and people can actually hear what you're saying, right? The right people. So that
Right.
makes sense.
To resonate. Exactly. It needs to
Mhm.
resonate. It needs to be true. It needs to be authentic. I think that that's really important, is authenticity.
Yeah, it needs to be aligned with who you are also. Obviously, it's not just about
Yeah.
posting out there on Instagram. It needs to have that concise message so people can pick up and know, oh, I got him. That type of mentality. So yeah, definitely. I mean,
And
Michael.
I'm still learning. I'm still learning. I think that that's also been a trait of my career as a cinematographer and director, is you don't get there. There's no destination
Mm,
you're done. Technology changes, different tastes change in terms of what people like. And so you have to constantly have a new mind. You have to constantly learn and to be open to new ways of thinking and doing. And that's one of the things about AI. I think that people are afraid of it, but people were afraid of color film, really, back in the day. People were afraid of sound. They thought
Mars.
sound, whatever. But in terms of the entertainment industry, and then digital film, when digital cameras came out, everyone was like, oh, it's the death of Hollywood. So we've been here many, many times, and that's what I'm saying, is to embrace the new tools, learn what the weaknesses are, and then leverage what you can to make wherever you need it. Leverage AI, instead of being afraid of it. So I know people who just won't even use it anyway. But so it comes down to, really, like I said, like you say, is to have a new mind, and to be open to knowing what you don't know,
Mm,
and getting better.
yeah, I love that.
That my father, when I was fortunate enough to have a father who was very successful in the industry, and he told me, don't go into the entertainment business to make money. Go into it because you love it, and then you will most likely make money.
Mm,
You will possibly make money. But if and most of people who are in this industry are doing it because in their heart they can do nothing else. They're compelled. They're drawn to it. It's a calling. And I think that that's what all of us, when things become difficult, it hurts us on a deep level, because it's who we are. It's what we really love doing. And so that's also what I want to be an advocate for people, is to come to me, even if you don't, use me as a coach. Come and have a conversation with me. If I can give you just a little bit of hope or a crack in the, a little light, allow a little light to come in, I'm happy to do that. So, don't be shy. That's all I can say. Reach out to me in one way or another on email or whatever. And I'm speaking to someone after this call, actually, who can't come to my webinar, but she's struggling to find work. And I just want to see if I can help her in some way. So I do that.
I love that. I love the way you framed it. And if someone listening wants to connect with you or follow your work, Michael, where can people find you and connect with you?
Well, my website is dauntless-coaching.com. That's the website. You can learn a little bit about how I help people, and that's just information. My email is michael@dauntless-coaching.com. Or if you want to use the Gmail one, you can use Dauntless Coaching, all one word, @gmail.
Okay, Michael, I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate you being here and sharing so openly today. It was great having you.
Thank you. It was great. I really appreciate it.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.